Okay, well, I think I got lucky. I checked out the audio on the last recording, and it seems to be okay. So this will have to be, this whole Istio thing is going to have to be broken out into several videos, which I guess is okay. I just don't know of some great free open source video editing software that would allow me to concatenate a whole bunch of videos together as one. But anyways, having said that, I'm going to start with the next step. So what we have currently running right now, git po-n istio system. So what's currently running in my Kubernetes cluster right now is the Istio service mesh and all of its components that we started up from our last video. So we actually have that whole architecture running at this point in time, for the most part, which is what you're seeing right here. So now for the next step is we can actually start running, starting up our application from the previous course, the one that I converted over to the AWS cloud as well as to the Kubernetes clusters. So that's the Frank Oz course. And I'm just going to go ahead and start up those particular microservices one by one, as well as the service itself. So I kind of like this little trick here. We're inside of Visual Studio Code. I can just go ahead and highlight these and do a run. So we're applying this to our cluster, and this is going to take a little bit of time. So I'll pause the video and wait for these to finish. Before I do that, what I did want you to see though is I did a kubectl git po just on the first three right here. Now, if you notice, we actually have two containers, it looks like, that it's running inside of here, where you see the pod initializing. And that is because Istio is injecting the sidecar containers to each of these individual pods, which is why you're seeing this 0 of 2. If you were not to be running Istio, you would just see 0 of 1, or you would see like 1 of 1 running. So as you can see, because we labeled our namespace for Istio, to default, Istio is recognizing pods are running inside the default namespace here, and it's injecting that sidecar container. So it is going to actually take a little bit longer for this application to start up, because it's literally got to start up a bunch of other containers. So that one ran. So I just went ahead and started up the next set of services, token server, and our cart service. So basically I can just do a git po and see what the status of those are. I'm just kind of doing this slow and incrementally. As you can see now, our cart service is running, or it's initializing. We'll go ahead and do the order service and the catalog service, as well as, we'll just do all three of these here. And I will pause the video and wait for them all to finish. Okay, so I was doing repeated git POs, and as you can see, they're all running. If you look here, we've got 2 of 2 for each of these. The reason why I have different versions of catalog services is I was going to kind of demonstrate canaries, where you can actually deploy quote-unquote experimental changes into production if you want, with just a small percentage of them. There's different patterns for deployment. You know, so I actually have canaries there, as well as, you know, for the front end. So I've got a V2 there. One of the things I have noticed, and it's due to a timing issue with the application itself, so I need to get, is that I need to, after I start up the services in the application, I need to go back and get the actual port for one of the services so that I can set the token server to run to, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I do a kubectl get service, what it's going to show right here is your different ports that your various pods are listening on right here. This particular port continues to change on me right now. But, well, actually, we're not using an Ingress controller, so we should actually, we will be using an Ingress controller, so that'll be different. So it is actually this one right here, this 30500, because it's a node port, it's the authentication server. This port changes on me periodically. I can go ahead and configure it eventually so it'll use the same static port, but in between each cluster startups, I have to go ahead and change this particular port so that this front end pod right here will know how to communicate to it. Also, the other thing is the IP address. The cluster tends to change. This is running Minikube. In a real-world production environment, you wouldn't have that situation, but right now it's 1024. And if I go into my Mvc Deployment right here, and this is just purely because of Minikube right here, I've got to go to my identity URL and change this to be 24 because that's our cluster right there, and our port, like I was saying, is set to 30500. That changes on me too, so I just need to set that to 30500. And so now let me see if I have to do that elsewhere. I don't believe I have to. I think I've made some changes on this. Where I didn't have to do that to the other ones right there. That's correct. I will have to change the token server right here, because right here you can see it's set to it's set to the endpoint 2.2. Well, because I've started up the cluster several times, we're now at 2.4. This particular port, this 31380, is going to remain static thanks to the help of the Ingress gateway component with Istio. So that part doesn't change, but I do need to go back into my token server right now, and I need to change that deployment right here to be 24. And so what that means now is I just need to restart just both the WebMVC front end and the token server. So it's kind of a timing issue right there, but it's happening just in this deployment environment right here, just for testing. So I'm going to reapply that, and I am going to apply the MVC deployment. Get that going. And let it start up, and I will resume the video once that's done. All right, so let's see what our status is right here. Okay, that's done. So now we've actually started up our application. We're still not out of the water yet because we have to go ahead and start up our Ingress controller within Istio. So, and we will do that with this 7-Istio rules. So I'm skipping over 6 for now because there's 2 mutually exclusive things that I wanted to demonstrate on that. So this here allows us to configure our Ingress gateway configuration, which is really nice. It's very similar, same concept as your Ingress controller within Kubernetes. So instead of having, if you want to have load balance, your incoming applications, and you don't want to have basically a cloud provided load balancer for each and every one of your services, you can have everything funnel through an Ingress controller and an Ingress gateway in this case. And then if you deploy this to the cloud, you're going to have just really only one, per se, if you will, one load balancer, and behind the scenes it'll do the load balance. So it'll actually save you money, and it provides some other good features. So actually the Istio documentation and this Istio hands-on course will actually do a much better job on explaining this, but in the long and short of it, with the gateway is basically going to, it's going, let's see what we've got here. I'm pausing this other thing right up there. I was getting a chat going in there. But anyways, the gateway is that you can create route rules and, you know, include monitoring, but you can create route rules, HTTP route rules, header rules, other various rules like that that allows incoming traffic to be properly routed to your individual services. So this is just like a little documentation here describing the whole concept of, you know, what the gateway is and what it'll provide for you. And in my previous video out there, I kind of showed some screenshots of like what the Kubernetes Ingress controller does and how you can configure that. But basically, it kind of sits on the outside of your cluster, and it's really in the inside of it. But I mean, if you want to logically think of it as sitting outside of your cluster, taking all these incoming requests from the outside world and redirecting them internally to services, like I said, even though it's really inside the cluster. But you have just one endpoint, one external endpoint, and that's where you could literally put your cloud fronted load balancer on there and have it direct traffic to your controller, and then your controller itself can go ahead and use various rules like routing rules, header rules, things of that nature to figure out which of the pods to redirect the traffic to. So that's really the whole concept of the gateway right there. If you want to know a little bit more about the gateways, again, if you go ahead and purchase this course, or you can find other YouTube videos, or you can go through the documentation, if you will. This particular course has a great section on why you would need gateways and how you would have edge proxies, which is just what I was kind of describing right there. And where you can do prefix-based routing, where you would actually add, you know, another piece at the end of your URL. Off of your main URL, you would have like another little section right there, and based on what that is, you know, you could set up rules to redirect traffic to certain pods that way, or you can do it with headers and such. So having said that, let me just go ahead and start this up here to start up the Istio gateway here. That controller running, and let that apply. It takes a little bit of time. I am taxing my system. I have about 9 gigabytes of memory allocated for this given cluster. My machine has only got 16 gigs on it. So that's running. All right, so I went ahead and also started up this Canary application right here, this Canary deployment, just to show a demo on that. But let's see if our application starts up. So basically, because we have a Ingress controller set up, I wanted you to see something here. If we look at our services for our Istio system, you can see right here, you've got your Istio Ingress gateway, and one of the ports right here, which is mapping to port 80 on the local box here, is 31380. That is our static port right there. And because of that, that is why we can go ahead and, if we bring up the token server deployment right here, if you can look right here, our MVC client is equal to 31380, which is our Ingress controller. So what I should be able to do is take this whole address, because that is our current cluster, and I should be able to start up our application. And as you can see, we've got our application started up right here on port 31380. And here I should be able to log in. And we'll paste in my password. The reason I'm getting this here is because I didn't clear out my cache from my last run. So I've been doing a lot of testing here. This is with the correlation headers. Got to make sure I clear out the cache. Well, that was kind of a pain. I do notice that I do have some caching issues within the browser. I'm sure we've all experienced that too. From a whole bunch of repeated tests and all that, it's was holding on to some old stuff, so I had to do a hard refresh on this. But as you can see, I was able to go ahead and log in again right here. And we've got our application up and running. So you can see I'm looking at my cart. Go back to our catalog right there. Okay. So I think here I may stop and do a part 3 where I'm going to show Kiali and Jaeger and some of the other things. So I think I'll stop this video right here and then create a third one. So I'll see you in a bit.